Before replacing the starter, make sure to check your battery and ground strap. A weak battery and/or faulty ground strap can easily be the cause of a non- or hard-starting car. Once these are checked and you're sure it is the starter at fault, begin replacing it by completely disconnecting the battery. At the very minimum, make sure to disconnect the ground cable for the battery, yellow arrow. There is a direct cable from the positive side of the battery to the starter. If you accidentally ground the starter with a tool while working on it, you can cause serious damage to yourself and the car. You will need to remove the underbody trays to remove the starter motor. Please see our article and video on underbody tray removal for further instructions by following the link provided at the end of this video. There is not a lot of room to work on the starter, but it does come out through the gap between the cat and the cross brace and the oil pan, red arrow, without having to remove any other components. If you have a 4MATIC, you will need to remove the cat. Access to the wiring harness can sometimes be easier going up between the steering rack and the subframe, yellow arrow. There should be a plastic cap on the main wiring connection, red arrow. Pry this cap off and then use a 13mm socket to remove the nut holding the wiring on. Next, use a 10mm wrench and remove the nut on the other wiring connection, yellow arrow. The starter motor is held in place by two E14 torque bolts that are mounted from the bell housing side. There are a lot of different wiring harnesses connected to the bell housing by a bracket, supported by the starter bolts. If you work carefully, you can remove the starter motor without having to disconnect any of the wiring or clips. Use a series of extensions and a universal joint for the upper bolt and remove the two mounting bolts as indicated by the red arrows. The bolts are long and micro-encapsulated, so take your time and make sure they are fully out before attempting to remove the starter. With the bolts removed, you can slip the starter down between the cat and the subframe. Note, if you have a 4MATIC, you're going to need to remove the catalytic converter. Check the condition of the old starter. If there is any damage to the teeth, there could be damage to the starter ring on the flywheel. Inspect the starter opening before installing the new starter to make sure it is clean and flat. Installation is the reverse of removal. Thanks for watching. Click here to view the original article along with hundreds of other DIY content for your car.